It's hard to see what the tour has gained from this. And to me, the most interesting clause of all is the ninth paragraph of it, which Jody mentioned there, the non-disparagement clause, which is fairly normal business where you can't disparage any of the parties involved in it.
Folks, you wanted to know who this LIV Golf Insider guy is tearing up Twitter? We got him on the show today. And of course, I've got my brother from another mother, Jake Spangolf. Today's topics involve this whole battle of sorts between Eamon Lynch, who's still carrying on the torch against LIV Golf. He tried to take out Patrick Cantlay, and then who rose to his defense? No other than NyQuil Masters guy, Adam Scott. So things are flying fast and furious. Eamon Lynch has responded, and then we also have to get through Peter Malnati, who's for some reason on the PGA Tour leadership board.
And just got a new sponsorship deal with Ewing Outdoor Family. Coincidence?
LIV Golf Insider, how are you doing?
Gentlemen, I am doing very well. How are you guys?
We can't complain at all. It's a pretty good day in our world, isn't it?
We're living the dream. Tell us a little bit about yourself that you can tell, because you are a mysterious man on Twitter.
LIV Golf Insider's face cannot be revealed for national security purposes.
Yeah, look, man, I kind of just started the page because of all the corrupt golf media that was out there that I saw before, right around the time when LIV started. I always liked LIV and how they kind of changed the game and brought a younger generation to it from the beginning. A little different style of golf is not going to hurt anyone. I've been playing golf my whole life, so I can attest to that. But yeah, kind of just started the page, didn't really expect much and followed a bunch of golf people, and then kind of took off a little bit. So yeah, here we are, doing podcasts, that I never thought I'd do. But yeah, loving it so far. Great first round today at Valderrama. That course is something else. Jay Monahan wishes that they could play there, but probably not going to happen.
Jake, why don't you talk us through the whole Eamon Lynch, Patrick Cantlay, Adam Scott, back to Eamon Lynch dynamic?
This really is one of the most weirdest things ever. I mean, obviously, we've seen, Eamon Lynch take hard stances and try to fist fight giraffes and bash and beat down on Greg Norman for a year and a half. And it's just part of his job. I get it. He's a journalist. And I say journalist with quotation marks because, it's not really journalism. It's more of just like catcalling and trying to instigate fist fights in the locker rooms. He essentially took an article out that we actually commented on and tried to speculate about where he's thinking this is out and what he means about it. And this was the issue of the Patrick Cantlay trying to make a faction to strike down or create a division or try to get control of the PGA Tour by trying to siphon off players and make his own coalition. And that was kind of the idea that Eamon Lynch was talking about. But apparently it was such wild speculation that it irritated one of the most mild-mannered guys out there. And, granted, since the merger agreement, we have seen Adam Scott kind of take a bit more red pill stances, trying to get, a few more, aggressive stances out there that we usually don't see out of him. He's usually very choice in his words, very cautious, doesn't like to, swing at people in open public. He's very backdoor, very quiet, right? Well, he takes on and posts a big old post on Instagram and basically ripping Eamon Lynch apart, saying that, hey, you're throwing around shade, you're creating problems, you're not doing real journalism. And that's essentially the gist of it. Now, the awkward thing about this is it's not that Adam Scott posted this. It's that we're seeing several other key marquee players get behind this and also repost it. So we saw in the span of a day, we saw Justin Thomas, we saw Ricky Fowler, and Will Zalatoris. All three are also guys in conjunction with Adam Scott that we know at least were offered or talked to about LIV Golf and had money on the table. So all four of these guys were seemingly coalescing around each other. And we also saw two other pros that we know of at least throw support to the original post from Adam Scott. And that's Charlie Hoffman and Keith Mitchell. What does this all mean? What do you see about this, Pants?
Well, to me, the interesting thing is that Eamon Lynch and obviously Brandel Chambly, they're pulling for this whole merger to not go through. So Eamon Lynch points to the non-disparagement clause.
But it does say that you cannot disparage what is referred to as ultimate beneficial owners. That is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. So the PGA Tour is in effect going from hiding behind 9/11 families to agreeing that they cannot disparage the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and its various abuses.
And in his response to Adam Scott says, too bad they didn't have something like a non-dismemberment clause. So to me, you have a guy here who's potentially disparaging LIV already on behalf of the PGA Tour because he works for the Golf Channel and they have like the media rights shared between the PGA Tour from a deal they signed last year. So you basically have almost an agent of the PGA Tour potentially blowing the deal for them. LIV Golf Insider, is that a crazy take?
It's not a crazy take. I think, after reading Eamon Lynch's article, he's just too out there, man. He's so wrong about everything. That's happened and he continues to be wrong. But hopefully he's not wrong about the last sentence of his article that says it's unclear whether Monahan will return to the PGA Tour. Could you imagine if that happened?
Well, that's interesting because you also have Peter Malnati reference the fact that they don't know what's going on with Jay Monahan at this point in the article that came out by Golf Week yesterday or today, where he's explaining what's going on. They had about, 10 players at this board meeting, and he's trying to give us a little bit more insight as to this whole chaotic situation.
I went through Twitter last night after, seeing the whole thing with Scott and Thomas and all them, and those of who haven't blocked me already. I tried to, compile a list of all the major media members / journalists, sites. I went through and not one person has talked about Scott, Thomas, Fowler, and Zalatoris posting that on social media. Not one. Monday Q School, Golf Digest, golf.com, Foreplay, Kyle Porter, No Laying Up, Jamie Weir, Rick Rungood, all of CBS, Fried Egg, Christine Brennan, Sobel, and Shane Bacon. Those are the main ones I could find. The only one who I did see that said something about was Sports Illustrated. They were the only people that did mention that it actually happened because apparently nobody else wanted to.
Well, that's interesting. Do you know which author of Sports Illustrated
It was
mentioned it?
Gabrielle Gabrielle Herzig, I think. It was a gal. But I just saw it because Bob Harrig retweeted it. I don't know who she is.
Out of everybody out there, SI makes the most sense to actually at least acknowledge it, simply because of the fact that SI, as we know, has released and started making their own golf ranking system as a kind of an alternative to the defunct OWGR. And sadly, nobody out there among the new ranking systems has a truly 100% accurate sentiment right now. But the SI, at least acknowledging that there needs to be a change, or at least trying to put a new one out there, lines up more with the fact that somebody from them is actually at least interested to acknowledge this disruption, because that's what it is. It's a disruption. It's a fight back from the players, because the players are feeling muffled and silenced right now.
Well, on the topic of silence, as LIV Golf Insider points out, the silence is deafening, and that these major publications, these major outlets aren't covering the tension that Eamon Lynch is causing with the players, probably furthering the tension because, again, these guys' voices aren't being heard, whether it be when they're tweeting about it or in these players' advisory meetings.
Well, and how would you feel if you're Patrick Cantlay, or you're a key player in the PGA Tour, and an article like that comes out from a major publication, and all of a sudden, people like us, we have to comment on it, we have to talk about it, because it's now a thought that's out there in the cosmos, right? And so all of a sudden, it eventually gets back to the players, and now they have to have the tough conversations of, hey, Patrick, what the hell is going on? Are you really doing this? And it takes away from the golf. It takes away from their focus, and that creates a bunch of problems for these players that are getting involved or getting named in these situations that they really shouldn't have to deal with. And that's really interesting to see those four Because obviously those four are people that are constantly involved in media situations, right? They always have a media day at almost every event they go to. So they understand that, like, hey, this is a distraction. This is a problem. The fake journalism needs to stop.
Think about, what would happen if Thomas, Spieth, and Smiley Kaufman posted a picture, on a beach with their shirts off, or Bryson DeChambeau tripped over a rock. It would be blown out of proportion by every single one of those people that I just mentioned. But when something serious happens, their tail goes behind their legs and they don't say anything. So it's just it's a great definition of what we call the corrupt golf media. That's just what it is.
So to further Live Golf Insider's points, that not only are they not mentioning the tension that's going on between Eamon Lynch and the PGA Tour stars, you've got this cover-up job to throw more shade at Liv through Nick Faldo, who at the British Masters, when asked about Liv, he stated that, whether he thought it would take off. I don't think so, because nobody's really interested. They're not going to get the sponsorship they want. They call it a team event, and it's not because it's stroke play. Gentlemen, discuss Jake Spann.
His sentiment seems like a senile old man who's just like staring at the wall all day long. I mean, he's not in broadcasting anymore. He's not actually competing right now. So what is he doing? Who is he talking to that makes him think that that nobody's interested? Is he just like in a hole? Like is he permanently in a bunker at St. Andrews and talking to himself and thinks that nobody's interested because he's talking to himself all day long? He's acting like he's making comments, but yet he clearly hasn't watched a single event. He clearly hasn't paid attention to the fact that LIV is gaining sponsorships. I mean, we've noticed Majestics came out and openly said they have 2 sponsorships this week. They have the cryptocurrency exchange OKX, and then they also have the shirt sponsorship, which actually Redmondly apparently is the shirt sponsor for every single team's shirts.
Yep.
I went on their website, and pretty much every single team shirt you can see the baseline for, which makes sense because their shirts are fire. I love their shirts; they're good stuff. But the point is that he's talking like he's had his head buried in the sand for an entire year. He just emerged and wants to spout off years old thoughts. So I don't get it.
He's also been very critical towards the Ryder Cup too. No offense to the European followers, but if you don't have the European guys on that Ryder Cup team that are on live, there's just why even play? I think that's a big mismatch in my opinion. So Sir Nick the Knight has been very outspoken against LIV, and like Jake said, he hasn't not watched it. You just know he hasn't. It's just that guy's a clown too.
It's weird though to see somebody who is so influential and somebody who, I grew up watching, playing golf and admiring. I loved his 96 Masters win, whenever he just totally stomped the falling apart Greg Norman. And maybe this is what it is. Maybe it's just the fact that he hasn't gotten over being the person who stomps Greg Norman in the dirt, and he thinks that he can still do it, even though Greg Norman still looks like he could go out there and UFC fight tomorrow, and Nick Faldo has man titties now.
Yeah, Faldo he's also in that article. He was talking about how it's not a team event. I mean, to me, it's just the complete opposite. It really is a team event, right? That's exactly what it is. Just because it's not the Ryder Cup doesn't mean you can't have team golf. In my opinion, I think that team golf is one of the reasons that I kind of gravitated towards LIV in the beginning. I thought it's cool. It's different, Dude, how often, you tell someone you're watching golf and they laugh in your face, right? Someone that doesn't actually follow golf or watch it or play it or anything. Oh, that's so boring, blah, blah, blah. This is a different viewing aspect for people that brings a younger generation. And I know it's said a million times, but it's actually true. I've been to LIV events and it's all young kids. So Nick Faldo is just, he's old and he's stuck in his ways and there's probably not going to be any changing it. But I mean, in that article, he also said, despite the criticism of LIV Golf, Faldo believes the deal will be good for the PGA Tour and expand golf into the global game. Same thing with Malnati, just going back on his words, after the other.
Well, these guys are very conflicted because they had their true feelings, and then they have to put the little phrase at the end, but I think it's going to be good in the end. In terms of the Ryder Cup, as you just brought up, I mean, if the European team doesn't bring on Sergio, Westwood, and Poulter, I mean, it's an exhibition. This thing is actually an exhibition. You want the stars. That's why you had that whole PIP money, because you had guys who moved the needle and they were bringing value. Why wouldn't you want your cash cow to have stars in an exhibition? That's another story for another time. I also want to point out the fact that good news about LIV is not being put out there, including the whole LIV Green movement. I believe it's part of Saudi 2030. Gentlemen, why isn't this being brought up? Because we all know that golf is a guilty pleasure and we're destroying the planet with the pesticides and the water use.
No, it's a weird thing that it's not being publicized more. And I think it's more of just the fact that people don't want to get on the bandwagon and actually acknowledge good things that the Saudi government and Saudi PIF fund are looking towards. I mean, understand, Saudi Arabia is mostly unarable land. It's not. There's a large portion of the land out there that's not usable. They understand that they have to look toward better ways to manage properties, to look at things, to figure out how to best to use resources. So they understand that, like, hey, if we're doing this, we got to do things a little bit differently. And so for them to say, hey, we want to look at a green initiative, I don't know how much carbon they want to go carbon neutral on their golf tournaments. That's what LIV wants to do. That's what came out in the statement by Greg Norman. So I don't know who was actually firmly behind this, but I don't know what that looks like. What does that mean? Does that mean, that they only serve, certain types of foods? I don't know, but I do like at least the idea that we're looking toward better and more renewable ways to do things. It showcases a desire to do things better and not just maintain the status quo.
Instead of posting about Scott, and their beloved tour, they have to take digs at LIV, for no reason. But it is what it is. It's been going on for 2 years now. That's why we laugh.
My takeaway about the Green Initiative is that these guys demand to see, hey, show us some kind of progress or effort you're making. And then they actually make the effort and then no one acknowledges it. So you kind of want to keep that negative mindset in your head. So it's no matter what the Saudi government does moving forward, all the positive stuff they're going to try to discredit or ignore, and all the bad stuff they just keep bringing up again over and over again. But folks, now it's time to get to the interview with Peter Malnati, who apparently is the go-to guy for some reason in Detroit. You've got 10 guys at this board meeting, and the most beta male they bring out there and to exhibit him to the public and to explain what's going on. I don't think this is who Tom Watson was addressing his open letter to.
No. And not only that, guys, if you don't know who Peter Malnati is, don't be alarmed. Most of us don't. I only know about who he is because he played a Pro-Am event with Grant Horvat about 6 months ago at the Sanfordson Open. And that's the only reason I know who he is. So don't be alarmed. But this guy apparently is a PGA Tour player. He is a bucket hat wearer, and he also is somebody who, is somehow on the policy board. It's a council of 5 players that are supposed to, vote on stuff. There are some players that make sense to be on there, but there are some also that you're just like, did you just draw the short stick? And that's who Peter Malnati is.
Well, here's some backstory on Peter Malnati. As he's one of the 5 guys on the board, he specifically said he would not vote in favor of having the designated events and regular events division. And then later, he was just basically like, well, I was told to be better, so he jumped ship. So you already have this flip-floppy guy, once again, having a situation here where he's bringing up his values and morality, but the higher-ups say, hey, it's good for all of us. So, gentlemen, let's discuss.
Yeah, nobody knows who Peter Malnati is. I'll get that right out of the way, unless you are an avid golf fan for the last 15 years. I don't even think I knew who the guy was until that article that you just discussed. When he went back on his word, like he continues to do in this interview from the other day. I just think it's hilarious that the first line of the article, what was your biggest takeaway from the board meeting? One thing is very clear is that the PGA Tour's players feel betrayed. Well, Malnati, unfortunately for you, nobody has a clue who you are. So either you're going to continue to get betrayed regardless. But yeah, look, that guy, I don't know. I got nothing but negative things to say about that guy. So someone else can butcher him if you want.
Malnati starts off in this article with, "I never wanted this deal to happen, but now we're apparently in a position where it was needed for some reason. I want to see the PGA Tour succeed, and there are smart people that are telling me that this deal is going to set up the PGA Tour for long-term success." It's odd because didn't these same smart people tell you to use 9/11 and blood money and all these other smear tactics? And how did that end up working out?
Not good at all. Peter's biggest problem is that he has no personality and he has no desire to be a leader. I've watched the Pro-Am video where he's with the good guys, and he's talking up, having a good time, but he's not serious. He's very much reminds me of Ben Crane, but without the crazy. Just somebody who's there, who's not really tuned in, probably has some severe ADHD, and isn't really going to stick hard and make a hard stance and be the guy to say no. And the sad thing is the policy board is supposed to be representative of the players. And so you do have bigger name guys on there. I think Peter was supposed to be put on there, or was at least pushed to be on there, as a representative of the lower to mid-level tour guy, a guy who isn't somebody who's trophy hunting every single week, a guy who's just trying to keep his tour card every year. That was supposed to be what he represents, that camp of players who are just trying to stay on tour, right? The ones who don't have $1 million war chest for a rainy day when they break their leg next week because they're water skiing for some reason. You get what I'm saying, though. He's supposed to be that representative, and he's not. Where are the guys like Michael Kim or James Hahn when we need them right now? They're not there.
Are you referring to roof Koreans?
Yes. No, I'm referring to the cool guys who actually are based and talk about what matters on Twitter. Both of those two guys have been critical of everything that's been going down, and they're not afraid to say it. They're both PGA Tour players at similar levels of their career to what Peter Malnati is, somebody who people wouldn't know unless you follow Twitter religiously or just are crazy. And yet those guys are more based and more plugged in than Peter Malnati is.
What's interesting that Malnati points out, and we've all questioned, is what about the PGA Tour sponsors that were against the Saudi money? How do they feel about it coming in now? And he said less than 5% of them are affected, which is common sense because the PGA Tour sponsors were actively doing $40 billion worth of business already. So I'm sure it's a relief for some. But Malnati himself had moral obligations. He said he drank the Kool-Aid. So how does this guy all of a sudden rectify his prior feelings as per the Kool-Aid stance with the changes that are put out now?
I don't get it. There are some players who you just think have an influence or whatever, and I just want to know who's pulling his strings. Who do you think is pulling his strings, Liv?
I have no idea. I honestly have no idea. I have no idea why he was invited onto that board. I have no idea why he was interviewed about this. Somebody at the PGA Tour PR department needs a reality check because a guy like Peter Malnati should not be putting out statements like this entire article is. It's just awful press for their beloved PGA Tour. I think it's hilarious for us to just read and see how much of a mess it is in there, but I don't think that Malnati should be the one talking about these things when nobody has a clue who he is.
Well, absolutely, because not only that, but like the whole entire article, Pants, it reads through to me like he's not taking it seriously. Like he's like proxying in his vote almost. Is that how it feels?
He's just going to do what he's told to do. Mm-hmm. But he does bring up one great point here in the fact that the Rex Hoggard Golf Channel interview or when he came out and said that these players are going to come back and they're going to have a players council and determine how these guys are going to be penalized. The LIV players that are coming back. And Malnati says it's in the bylaws that we cannot have a player committee handle disciplinary issues. But the idea around the players who left and went to LIV and now would want to come back potentially, the tour is treating that as a disciplinary issue. So these guys don't seem to know their own rules and regulations that well before they go out to the press and say that we're going to punish them through a players board because in their bylaws it says they can't do that.
They don't know anything. They have no clue. They want to tell you it's a player-ran organization as much as possible, but that shit is ran by suits, and we all know it.
The final point I want to get through today, through Peter Malnati, is the fact that these guys still think that, as per discussion, I think with Jimmy Dunn, that the DOJ could hold this whole thing up.
Well, and why wouldn't they believe that? I mean, these are guys none of these guys are lawyers. None of these guys are litigators. I think it's very fair to say that we probably know more about these situations than they do. And I'm being serious because they are golfers. That's their profession. They are worried about chip shots, wedge shots, putters, alignments on their grip tape, making sure that their putter head covers don't get broken, in shipping. They got a lot of things they have to worry about for their own, livelihood. So they're not going to read the PGA Tour's bylaws. I mean, organizations that I'm a part of, I don't even read the bylaws because honestly, like, if you're doing the work of that organization, you're not going to memorize the rules of that organization.
Remember when the PGA Tour guys said it wasn't all about the money, and then they had them go to the Delaware meeting, and these guys were going to save the tour? Peter Malnati brings out an amazing quote. He says, it's about a guy who was at the Delaware group. "I was shocked and I was mad, but now that I kind of understand what's going on, we need to get out of the way. Let smart people do their jobs, and we'll all make shitloads." This, again, is from one of these players who's at the Delaware meeting. This completely highlights that all these guys are full of it. It was always about the money. And remember when the LIV London interviews where Poulter and Westwood had to handle questions from the press? Is there any regime you wouldn't work for the money? Why aren't these Delaware guys, the guys who, like this guy right here, why isn't he being asked that question right now? Because, again, we'll all make shitloads is the quote. He just doesn't care. Let them do what they have to do.
First off, I think somebody needs to have a talk with whoever. Like I said, those meetings are supposed to be closed doors, so I'm surprised that quote even got out. It just shows again that just how little control the leadership actually has over the people speaking out right now. There's just not much control there, and it's because, like I said, the PGA Tour's lost a lot of their influence and power. Even if they want to act like they still have it, they've lost control. They are gasping at straws. Jay Monahan's MIA, aka fired, but they won't say it yet. He's been fired, guys. Let's be real. He's been fired. They're giving him the golden parachute right now.
And great point that who's coming out on record here? It's Peter Malnati, and his last and the last sentence of this article is Peter Malnati saying, "But we need a commissioner."
Yeah, let's be real. Malnati, somebody paid Malnati to, somebody bought him like, Red Lobster or some shit that he would eat, some dog shit food. Somebody bought him something to release some quotes from the meeting, and then he'll go back and say that he doesn't want to, it's not about the money. Yes, it is, Peter Malnati. It's always about the money. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise in anything in life.
Well, and the only reason what we're hearing from him is because the other four guys on the policy board are either A, winning tournaments, or B, influential and smart enough to not make comments. Because the PGA policy board, by the way, is Rory McIlroy, Patrick Cantlay, Peter Malnati, Webb Simpson, and Charlie Hoffman. So again, that's a pretty good board, other than one player.
Folks, it's been wonderful having LIV Golf Insider on this episode of Big Boy Pants Golf. Thank you for being on. Have a great day, everyone. Subscribe, share, and like.